Have you ever noticed that most people don't actually want to stop worrying? They just want the feeling of control, the certainty that life will somehow work out, the green light, the exit sign, the guarantee that things won't fall apart. But here's the truth: life doesn't give out guarantees. And Carl Jung, of the deepest thinkers of the modern mind, never promised comfort. What he offered was something far more powerful: consciousness. You see, worry doesn't come from the future. That's the illusion. It comes from the past, quietly, invisibly, through old wounds we haven't faced. Childhood fears, broken trust, memories we pushed aside but never healed. And they don't just disappear, they grow roots inside us. But let me ask you this: what if your worry isn't the problem, but the portal? What if anxiety isn't just something to get rid of, but something trying to lead you back to the part of you that needs the most love? So we scan the future for threats, thinking we're being responsible, but really, we're haunted by a version of ourselves that still doesn't feel safe. And no another mindset shift won't fix that. A quote on Instagram won't dissolve it. Jung's answer wasn't to think more positively, it was to see more honestly. He believed that healing begins with awareness: awareness of your shadow, awareness of the parts you've disowned, awareness of the fact that what you avoid inside starts to control your life from the outside. Because the worry that keeps you up at night, it's not weakness, it's a message. And maybe it's time we finally listened. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Now, that might sound poetic, but it's not just a quote, it's a diagnosis, a mirror. Because most of the fear we carry isn't really about the world outside us. It's about the beliefs we've never questioned inside us. You think you're anxious about money, but pause for a second. What's underneath that? Is it truly about the bills or something deeper? Maybe it's the fear that if you stop being productive, you'll stop being worthy. That your value is tied to output, that rest equals failure. Or maybe you say you're terrified of losing someone. But look closer. What if it's not about them walking away, but about the story inside you that says, if they go, I'll be nothing? That's not heartbreak. That's an old wound talking. A part of you that still equates abandonment with worthlessness. These aren't casual worries. They're identity level fears. They're echoes of the past, shaping your present. And until we bring those beliefs into the light, until we see them for what they are, they keep running the show from the shadows. That's the genius of Jung's insight. Your life isn't just shaped by your choices. It's shaped by the parts of you making those choices unconsciously. So the real work isn't to chase control, it's to wake up, to look inward and ask, what part of me is actually driving this? That's where transformation begins. What if your worry wasn't something to get rid of? What if it was a message whispering, not screaming asking to be heard? See, most of us treat worry like an intruder. We push it away, we label it as weakness, we try to fix it, fight it, silence it. But Carl Jung saw it differently. He believed that the feelings we avoid don't just vanish, they grow stronger. They take root in the shadows of our mind, and they wait. And here's the twist: your ego will use worry as a distraction. It will keep you busy solving problems outside of you, so you never have to face what's actually going on inside. Because that would require stillness. That would mean sitting in the silence and listening to fear directly. Not running from it, not numbing it, not fixing it, just hearing it. And when you do, something shifts. The fear doesn't disappear overnight, but it begins to soften. It stops hijacking your thoughts. It loses the grip it once had over your body, your energy, your peace. Why? Because what we bring into awareness no longer controls use, it begins to transform. So maybe it's time we stop asking, how do I stop worrying? And instead ask, what is my worry trying to show me? Because healing doesn't always come from force. Sometimes it comes from finally turning around, facing the thing you've been running from, and saying, I'm listening now. That's when the real healing begins. Let's get honest for a moment. You don't need to solve every future problem in your head. You don't need to run through 1,000 what ifs before you go to sleep. You don't need to stay hyper alert just to feel responsible or prepared. But somewhere along the way, your mind convinced you that you do. That worry equals readiness. That stress is strength. That overthinking is some form of love or protection. And that's where the illusion begins. What you're calling being prepared is often just your ego and survival mode pattern built long ago when the world felt unpredictable and your nervous system learned that staying tense meant staying safe. But you're not in danger right now. You're not a child anymore. You're not stuck in the moment that created that response. And that voice inside the one that whispers, if I let go, something bad will happen. It's not your intuition. It's not your wisdom. It's your wound. The part of you that never got the chance to feel safe is still trying to protect you the only way it knows how, by staying afraid. But there's another way to live. A way where peace doesn't mean passivity and rest doesn't mean failure. A way where you're alert, but not anxious. Prepared, but not paralyzed. And it begins the moment you stop confusing control with security and start asking yourself, what if safety isn't something I create through fear, but something I reclaim through healing? That's when you stop surviving and start living. Carl Jung didn't promise perfection. He didn't tell people to chase control or to fix themselves into someone more worthy. What he offered instead was integration. That word might not sound exciting, but it's everything. Integration means you stop running from your pain and start holding it. Not to justify it, not to wallow in it, but to understand it. To see the wounded parts of you not as flaws to erase, but as parts of your story that were never truly heard. Because here's the truth. The parts of yourself you try to silence are usually the ones that need your attention the most. You don't heal by escaping who you've been. You heal by sitting with it, by choosing to be present with the version of you that had to survive, the one that had to stay small, stay alert, stay afraid, because back then, that was the only option. But you're not there anymore. And when you stop rejecting that part of yourself, something powerful happens. The fear loosens. The conflict quiets. The war inside you ends. That's what alignment really is. Not perfection, not becoming your best self, but becoming whole again by bringing the lost, forgotten, or hidden parts of you back home. And in that stillness, after the fight is over, you finally hear something deeper than fear. You hear you, not your ego, not your mask, just you clear, grounded, and finally free. Let me tell you something you may not hear often enough. You are not your worry. That constant tightness in your chest, that racing mind always a few steps ahead, preparing for the next disaster, that's not who you are. It's just a mask, a reflex, a survival strategy that once kept you safe, but now is keeping you stuck. See, the ego has a clever way of disguising fear as responsibility. It whispers, stay tense, that's strength. It tells you if you care, you have to control everything. And maybe the most damaging lie of all, if you rest, you'll fall behind. But none of that is power. That's not awareness. That's anxiety wearing a suit. True power doesn't shout. It doesn't need control. It doesn't run in circles trying to prevent every possible outcome. Real power is quiet. It's the moment you step outside the loop and say, this isn't me anymore. You stop feeding the thoughts that always end in panic. You stop chasing perfection so you can finally allow peace. You stop demanding your nervous system carry what your soul already knows isn't yours. And when that shift happens, when you finally let go of the role you've been playing, you won't feel like you've lost control. You'll feel like you've come home. Because beneath the worry, beneath the tension, beneath the endless striving, there's a version of you that is still and strong and enough. You were never meant to live on high alert. You were meant to live awake. Real peace doesn't crash in like a breakthrough. It doesn't come with fireworks or some grand moment of enlightenment. It arrives quietly, like a soft breath you didn't know you were holding. It feels like clarity, like space opening up in your chest, like finally being able to hear your own silence and realizing that silence belongs to you. This is the kind of peace most people never reach, not because they're broken, but because they're too busy chasing the wrong idea of it. They think peace means everything is solved, that you have to earn it through control, that you'll only deserve it once, everything's perfect. But that's just ego talking. You don't need to chase peace like a reward. You simply need to stop believing that worry is part of who you are, because it's not. Worry is something you learned somewhere along the way. You picked it up like armor, maybe from childhood, maybe from chaos, maybe from a life that told you you had to be on edge just to survive. But the truth is, you can put it down now. You don't have to fix everything before you can rest. You don't have to predict every outcome before you feel safe. You don't have to keep carrying a weight that was never yours to begin with. Peace isn't perfection. It's presence. It's alignment. It's the moment you stop living in reaction to fear and start living in response to truth. And when that happens, you don't just feel lighter, you become lighter on purpose.